Introverted, intuitive, feeling, judging, also known as INFJ, one of 16 personality types according to the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. INFJs are commonly called advocates, and they're one of the rarest types among all 16, and they represent only about 2% of the population. They have a deep and thoughtful approach to everything, and they rely only on their inner vision and personal values to find their way through life. There are a lot of paradoxes of being an INFJ personality type, as they have a balance between certain traits and their complete opposite. For example, there's a hot debate on whether INFJs are of the Sigma or the Alpha personality type from the socio-sexual hierarchy. Their investment in the tribe is characteristic of Alpha, and their internal reflection is characteristic of Sigma. So, stay tuned to know which type we think they are. Welcome to Dream Thinker, where we explore the psychology of different personality types. If you like this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe so you can be notified whenever we release new content. These are 10 paradoxes that can make an INFJ's life difficult and how to overcome them. Number 1. INFJs are hyper-aware of themselves, but have little awareness of others. INFJs look within themselves to find what they like and dislike about the world. They internalize facts and patterns, and are more interested in what everything means to them rather than simply looking at it for what it is. They're ambitious, hardworking, and they enjoy thinking about the future and exploring different scenarios. INFJs are so focused on themselves and their goal rather than anyone else. They can sometimes be oblivious to how people perceive them or feel about them. So, paradoxically, they say things that exasperate people's emotions even though they have clear intentions. Even though they're empathetic, they are aware of people's emotions. They have very little awareness of things like competitiveness, jealousy, and peer pressure. They just do their own thing regardless of what the world thinks. And if you don't know why that can get you in trouble, you probably haven't tried moving against the herd before. Also, advocates have strongly defined preferences. They don't like something or someone just because everyone likes it. They look within themselves to find what they truly enjoy in life, and they're not afraid to embrace it. So they have different tastes in music, food, art, places, and pretty much everything. They understand why many people like a certain thing. They just don't like it themselves. People mistake the INFJ's unique preferences as being too cool for school. It can be frustrating trying to prove otherwise. In both cases, the best way for an INFJ to overcome this is by expressing themselves only to those whom they can fully trust. Avoid discussing your goals and ambitions with people you don't know well and who might hold grudges, and don't reveal your unique preferences until you're very comfortable with someone and you're sure they wouldn't be judgmental. Number 2. INFJs stand up for others, but not for themselves. Advocates are hyper-aware of other people's feelings. They're highly empathetic and idealistic, and they're conscious of the fact that everyone has their own life and story, which is just as significant to them, also known as Sonder. However, this means that they're sometimes less aware of their own feelings, and they can easily fall into the trap of being a people's pleaser. They can struggle to say no because they don't want to hurt or embarrass someone, so they're often dragged into situations they didn't want to be in. Number 3. INFJs know what's good for them, but they don't do it. Advocates find their way through life relying on their ideas and theories, which they form based on their own insights and intuitions. They take little information from external sources and have to be convinced for themselves before they believe something or in something. People can sometimes consider them stubborn or not knowing what to do for their own good. They know what's good for them, it's just not necessarily what's good for people they care about, so they're often reluctant to do it. Number 4. INFJs enjoy life more than others, but also suffer more pain. Extroverted sensing is an inferior function for INTFs, which means it's much less developed than the other 3. Those who develop it are hyper-aware of the information relayed from their senses, which means they can feel the cold breeze on their skin, enjoy the sound of music, or marvel at the deliciousness of food more than anyone would understand. However, this can also mean that they would suffer from pain more than other people would, or they're prone to having pet peeves like chewing noises or bright lights. They can be extremely annoyed if it's too hot or too cold, and they might find it difficult to be productive under suboptimal physical conditions. Number 5. INFJs want to improve, but they hate criticism. Advocates can be extremely sensitive to criticism, even if it's genuine constructive feedback. They're the most idealistic personality type. They do everything on principle and care about doing the right thing more than their own personal gains. So, if someone challenges their principles or personal values, or questions the effort they put into their work by finding flaws in it, advocates won't take it lightly. They can become exceedingly defensive in the face of criticism, especially when it's an insult to their core beliefs. Number 6. INFJs are expressive, but they're reserved. Advocates tend to be sensitive and they value emotions, love to express them, but they tend to be very hard to open up. This is because of everything we've mentioned. They prefer to stay quiet most of the time in order to preserve their principles from any external scrutiny and also being judged for their different preferences. This can make it frustrating to get close to an advocate. Even though they're empathetic and sensitive, they can deliberately conceal emotions in order to avoid a connection. So it requires extra effort in order to be in a relationship with an INFJ, but you can be sure it'll be well worth it. Number 7. INFJs are extremely ambitious, but it can cause them depression. Koinophobia. It's okay if you don't know what that means. It's not a very common word. However, its definition is quite popular: the fear of being ordinary. In other words, the fear of the average. Advocates are motivated by the sense of having a greater purpose in life. Their dream lives is one in which they can create solutions that change people's lives. They want to have a real impact. This can spur them on to achieving great things for humanity, but it can sometimes backfire. An advocate might get extremely frustrated if their life gets tedious, or they can't see how what they're doing on a daily basis will contribute to their big visions. Number 8. INFJs are perfectionists, but they don't know when to compromise. Advocates are idealistic, and they can sometimes spend too much time and effort on something to make it live up to their ideals. This is great in many ways, since they wouldn't produce anything of less than stellar quality, but it can also mean that they waste too much resources when an alternative solution would be more efficient. It's too difficult for them to let go of the perfect scenario and make do with Plan B because Plan A is too expensive or too difficult. They're willing to go to great lengths to make sure everything is 100% even if it's not worth it. This also means that it can sometimes be difficult for advocates to start something, because they're waiting for the right time or preparing for the right circumstances needed to make the thing perfect, which can make them lose a lot of opportunities and can sometimes be perceived as procrastinators. Even though they're extremely ambitious and driven, advocates can sometimes find it difficult to appreciate their jobs, living conditions, or relationships if they're constantly focused on imperfections and having a dilemma if they should look for something better. Number 9. INFJs have a dangerous combination of perfectionism and reserve. This can leave them with no options for letting off steam. Because of their perfectionism, they can overwork themselves because they want to get a job done perfectly. And because of their reserve, they can be reluctant to ask for help or express being overwhelmed. This would be especially true if the INFJ holds a position in which their primary job is to help people, something like a doctor or a community service worker. People with this personality type can exhaust themselves if they don't find a balance between their desire to help others and their own self-care and rest. Number 10. INFJs are sensitive and romantic, but they're often faced with romantic frustration. Advocates take the process of finding a life partner very seriously. They look for depth and meaning in their relationships, refusing to settle for anything less than true love. For obvious reasons, this can make it very difficult for advocates to have a romantic relationship, and they often end up having a dilemma between sticking to their ideals and fulfilling their desires. It takes a huge amount of time for advocates to find the perfect partner, but when they do, they'll probably have a happy ever after with them. Even though this video might have painted a picture of advocates as doomed to struggle through life with all the paradoxes and dilemmas, that's not the full picture. It's just the angle of this video. They enjoy strengths like creativity, principle, altruism, and passion. We believe that INFJs strike the perfect balance between alpha and sigma, being exactly 50% of each, which is why they're so rare and no one seems to be able to categorize them. Thanks for watching.